Good morning. If you're new here, welcome to the chaos that is my wild and crazy life. I tell this story uncut, unedited, unfiltered, and uncensored. So if you're offended by words, please don't watch this. This video is going to be a little different. I'm going to continue the story, but I wasn't sure if I was going to put these parts into the story. But we're telling it all, and might as well get it out there. I don't like people knowing about this side of me because I have learned growing up that not everybody understands, and there's a lot of people out there who will just try to label you as crazy. When I was a kid growing up, I could see people that other people could not see, and they appear to me as real as you do. I didn't know that not everybody could see them. And it's not like I'm not schizophrenic. I don't have imaginary people in my head. But I am connected to things. And I didn't understand when I was younger what that meant. But as I grew, I started to understand that they were spirits. And I never really believed in the paranormal, I guess, especially in the way that it's portrayed on TV. That's not my personal experience. And the ones that I have seen on TV, most of the time I can figure out which ones are real and which ones are full of shit. No, it's not just spirits, though, that I am connected with. I am sometimes able to touch something, and I will get a whole play of a scenario. Or I will be in between the realms of being awake and being asleep. You know, that period where you're asleep, but you're still aware of everything that's going on around you. Or when you first wake up in the morning before your brain becomes fully conscious, and it's like the other side starts pouring things into your mind that you're supposed to know. I've predicted deaths. I've predicted births. And it's not really something I'm proud of. It's just something that's happened. A lot of times I won't touch people because I don't want anything that's in their head to bleed into mine. It feels like an invasion of privacy, you know? So I don't do it intentionally, and I try to avoid it if I can. It's more like a curse. I don't want to call it an ability. It pretty much sucks. Maybe that's part of the reason why I'm afraid of people. Maybe that's why I don't want to get close to people. Because there's a reason why I said I could see through bullshit. At any rate, moving on. Something that I want to know about the last video. Timmy, when he came over and told me about his mom and he broke down and all of that, at that point in time, we were still living with Old Man Ray. And that was before we moved back in with Nick's mom. And he was like having his own issues, you know, and it could have been Marie that Timmy was proposing to. and not Krista. I don't remember where Krista phased out and Marie was brought in. But I do know that he proposed and all of that played out. I could have just been wrong on who he was proposing to. I could have gotten that detail wrong. Marie's, in my opinion, pretty much just as irrelevant as Krista is. I got very little respect for Marie, but we'll get into why later. I'm not sure if that'll be in today's video or the next one. Now, why did I bring up this paranormal shit? Also, around the time that all of this was going on with Timmy, Nick and Timmy were out of state for a job they were doing. They were working for a company called Geomembrane Services. And the owner, I guess, had been somebody that Nick had worked for off and on throughout the years. And he was a good guy. His name was Jim. And his company at the time was doing well. So they did pit liners and stuff for landfills and golf ponds and all that kind of shit. So him and Timmy were off in another state doing this job. I had just had Alicia. I was still passing clots the size of my fist. And Timmy comes home early. And he comes straight to my house. And he's got a scar on his cheek a cut on his cheek under his eye, right where his cheekbone sits. And I looked at him and I was like, what the fuck happened to you? And where's Nick? And he said, oh, Nick's still down there. He's still working. I came back early. Why? Well, he and I got into a fight. And I want to say I could be wrong about this. The fight could have happened in the summertime. Because Timmy came home early a couple of times. And I think this was the time he came home and told me about strippers. That's what it was. So he comes home, no cut under his face at this point in time. That happened later on in the year. But he comes home, comes straight to my house, tells me that him and Nick got into an argument and he came back early to tell me that Nick was down there spending all of the fucking money on strippers. And he gave me all of the dirty details about it all. Great. And Timmy left. A day or two later, Nick was home. And I confronted him about it. We had this cabinet. And it was a double door cabinet, but there was no doors on it. And it had all of our plates, bowls, cups, like all of our glassware. And then underneath of that cabinet was our dining room table. And I was standing near the front door. Nick was standing with his back to that cabinet facing me. I was maybe like 5 feet away from him, and I told him to stay away from me because I was that fucking angry. And I'm listening to him tell me all of this shit, trying to justify why it was okay for him to spend all this money on these strippers and leave me with nothing. And he just kept going, and I was getting angrier and angrier with everything I could feel it seething through all of me. And then all of a sudden, I felt like I was going to explode. I started feeling this pressure, like there was this holding me together. And then all of a sudden, I felt this burst of energy just release from me. And then all of the dishes in that cabinet exploded out. And Nick jumped. He came way over to where I was standing. There's glass everywhere. It's still tinkling all over because it hit the table, it hit the shelf next to it, it flew across the kitchen. There was nothing wrong with the cabinet. The shelf didn't give way. We looked for a reason to explain this away. And we couldn't find one. Now, I don't necessarily want to take credit for that, but it's not the only time in my life something like that has happened. Moving along, I think the last thing I was talking about was Betty and Kim doing dumb shit. And Betty naming Carlina. Not Betty doing dumb shit, Betty naming Carlina. Chris, Kim's brother, did bring down a load of stuff. And while we were moving stuff into this apartment, okay, now I do want to say this though, because this is so fucking grody. And since we're putting it all out there like a bad paparazzi, I'm going to give you the attention you deserve, not the attention you want. So we're going to put it all out. Me and Nick boxed up our sex toys, packed them up, wrapped each one because I'm very particular about them. They were all cleaned and put away. Okay? Taped up in a box. And I don't mean just a couple strips of tape. No, we duct taped this bitch. Okay? And then we put this box inside of our nightstand before he left for the military. Tell me how come when I got my sex toys, they weren't in the box anymore. They were thrown in a duffel bag with a bunch of my clothes, and they were put in there dirty. And I don't mean just coochie juice, all right? There was some flecks of stuff. You feel me? Gross, grody. And since Kim wanted to be petty about money when I told her no, I decided I was going to be petty about this. I wasn't going to use them again. But somebody was going to come and fucking clean them. Because it's the principle of it, right? So I don't know who used them. Kim did go up to go help Chris pack shit up. And Lori's kids also lived in the house. So who knows, right? Don't care who did it. Kim threw a fit about it. Well, then she made the mistake of calling her mother and telling her mother about it. So her mother called me. And I told Lita that if she wanted to stick her nose in this business and be involved in her daughter's bullshit, then she could come clean them. And she did. She came to my house and washed them in my kitchen sink. And there was at least 8 of them. Okay. Petty. When Chris was helping me move stuff in, this is kind of where we're getting into the scary side of the paranormal stuff here. When I first moved into this apartment, that first night, I walked through the place, okay? And I saw 3 little faces peeking in the master bedroom window. So I ran out to the front door and I looked, and there's nobody there. So I run back to the bedroom and there's still 3 faces there and they haven't fucking moved. So I go back to the front and they're not there. I shut the door, turned the light off, and I very rarely went into that bedroom. That bedroom stayed pretty much unused the entire time that we were there. So when we're moving stuff in, this was the perfect space for me to just put everything, and I could go in there and grab boxes as I wanted, as I had the time to go through them, and could arrange the house how it needed to be. And we're putting stuff in this apartment, and when you first walk in, there's the living room, and then there's the kitchen, a hallway. As soon as you go down the hallway to the left, there's the hot water heater, a little bit of space, bathroom door, and then there's the furnace. And at the end of the hallway is Alicia's bedroom door. And then on this side, close to Alicia's bedroom door, is where the master bedroom is, and it butts up against the living room. The wall against the living room has a walk-in closet. It's not very deep, but it goes all the way across. So there's 2 accordion-style doors on that closet. Well, the one closest to the actual bedroom door, apparently, I don't know what the fuck was up with that spot, but it didn't matter what we put on the floor right there. It would slide out to the middle of the room. And it didn't matter, like, by itself. So I told him we would start putting stuff in the closet first. And we filled up the far side and we started putting stuff in the closer side. And whenever we were passing each other like this in the hallway, bringing stuff in. So one of us would come in, put something in, and by the time the next one came in, that whatever it was would be moved to the middle of the floor. I would move it to somewhere and then he would come and put the next thing in the closet on the floor right there. And every time I would come in, it would be in the middle of the floor. And I was like, this is weird. Why is he just coming in and kind of setting it in front of the door? Somebody's going to trip. So I walked out and I was like, will you start putting stuff in the closet? And he's like, I have been. I thought you were moving stuff out. And I said, no, I'm not moving it out. He said, well, every time I go back in there, there's stuff in the middle of the floor. I said, yeah, me too. So we were like, all right, well, we'll just both start putting stuff in there together. And we were putting stuff in there together. We made a trip, walked out, made another trip, and when we were on our way back into the bedroom, we watched this box go from the closet to the middle of the doorway in the bedroom. And he left and would not come back into my apartment. He stayed outside the entire rest of the time. And me and Carrie moved stuff into the apartment because he would not come back in. Now, there had been this smell that I couldn't quite pinpoint. And I had been all over in the apartment, scrubbing the walls. You know, I got the carpets cleaned. Like, I did a bunch of shit to try and get rid of this fucking smell, and it was not going away. So I went over to maintenance, and I talked to the manager of the apartment complex. And I was like, look, there's this stench. I don't know what it is. Like, come change an air filter or something. Come help me figure out what it is, because this ain't me. Well, he found a dead cat in the vent that was in the ceiling, not in the ceiling, but like there was a drop down, the area above the closet doors, right? In between the closet doors, there was a wall, and that's where the heater came out, was above that. Okay. So it was in the ceiling, or you know what I'm trying to say. Right there. Maybe 3 feet inside of that vent. Mummified. Totally desiccated. Dehydrated. And the fur wasn't even falling off of it. So it was relatively fresh. Right? But that's not the only thing I found. After Chris left, and all of that, I started digging through this apartment. Finding that cat just made me really fucking weirded out. And during the process of cleaning and everything, I did take off the cold air return underneath of the furnace, and I was vacuuming that out, and my vacuum hose hit something solid. I'm like, what the fuck? So I used the vacuum hose, and I pulled this book out of this cold air return, and it's it's a black leather-bound book, and it's got all these drawings in it and these weird symbols, and it looked like witchy shit, okay? That's not me. Nope, I don't fuck with that nonsense. No, nope. I don't even know if I necessarily believe in it, but I am not willing to try to dip my toes in the fucking water at that point in my life. I have recently, just recently, but we'll get into that another day. But anyway, so I find this book, and it's all of this witchy shit. And then since nothing would be allowed to stay in the closet, I don't know. I pulled the carpet back, and underneath the carpet on the hardwood, there was this chalk outline of shit. And I was looking at the wall, and I noticed like whole fingernails, not like you clip it off here. No, whole fingernails, like this fucking long, that looked like they still had skin and shit attached to them, were stuck to the wall and then painted over. Like, whoever painted the closet just decided we're painting over it, and they left all that shit there. And I'm not witchy. I don't fucking know how this shit works. All I know is that there was some paranormal shit happening in my apartment. One day I'm laying there on the couch trying to take a nap, and Alicia's playing. She's in the living room, and she's got the shopping cart in there. You know the Mardi Gras bead necklaces? She's got one of those wrapped around the handle, and she's got the other end in her hand. And I'm hearing Alicia, and she's babbling, talking to herself like kids do. And then all of a sudden, the shopping cart goes fucking flying across the room. And I was staring at it because I heard her say, "No, Molly, that's mine." And I opened my eyes like, who the fuck is this kid talking to? And I see what's not there. So I'm trying to kind of put out feelers, and I do get a sense of there's something here, but it doesn't want me to know that it's here. So I start asking Alicia questions. Who's Molly? And she starts telling me Molly's this little girl. She died a long time ago. She's giving me details about Molly. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe it's just that Molly only feels safe appearing to her. And at first, like, I desperately wanted to think she was making a friend for herself, but then seeing the shopping cart go across the living room like that, no, obviously this is not, an imaginary friend. And I know how much it damaged me being told that what I was seeing, who I was talking to, was imaginary. It was in my head. No, it's not in my fucking head. And I'm not going to put that on my kid. So she was playing games with Molly one day. And Molly seemed like a typical child ghost, maybe a bit of a handful, but I couldn't pick up anything besides that. But I could tell that there was a veil. I could tell that I was being kept out. There was resistance. There was a barrier, so to speak. And one day, I'm looking for Alicia because it's time to eat. And I go back to her room and she's not there. And the house is unusually quiet. And I'm like, where the fuck is this kid? So I go looking in my room because I told her I didn't want her in there. And of course, kids are quiet. They're going to do the shit you told them not to do. She's not in there. So I start tearing the apartment apart. I'm calling for her and nothing. Finally, I'm like, Alicia, you better fucking tell me where you're at right now. And I heard a giggle come from her bedroom. So I go to her bedroom. And there's this, one of those locks. One of these ones. You know what I mean? The hook and eye lock, I guess it's called. And I had it way up almost at the very top of the door. No way that she could have fucking reached this thing. And I kept it locked. I locked her dresser in her closet so that I wouldn't have to refold her clothes all the time, because she made a habit of ripping everything out of her drawers on a daily. And I got tired of fixing it. So, and I was really OCD about it. Shirts had to be like this and in this spot. And it was bad. So I didn't want to have to spend hours of my day dealing with that every day. So I locked it in the closet. And she was inside the closet on the top of her dresser. No drawers opened. How the hell did you get in there? First off, there's no way she could reach it. There was nothing around her room where she could push the lock up with a stick or no. And I asked her, I said, how did you get in there? And she said, Molly put me in here. Ooh. Okay, now we're getting a little scary. Nick, of course, at this point in time was going through training. And he came home for 13 days. And this is when he knocked me up with Alicia, or sorry, Carlina. This is also when he was home and he and I got into an argument. I ended up walking back to the apartment because I wasn't going to deal with how he was talking to me. I had gotten really close with Carrie and Betty after Nick left. When Nick was home, though, right after he left, I was cleaning the apartment, and this is when we found the notebook underneath of the entertainment center where he was discussing with a man about intimacy with him. So, I mean, I'm not trying to fucking bash him for what he likes, okay? Like, you do you, boo-boo, but if I'm your wife, you should be honest about it. This should at least be in discussions. If you're a closet homo, great. I'll be your fucking cover story because I'm cool with that. But just don't lead me to believe that this is something that it isn't. You know? But he did. And when I confronted him about that, he explained it away as something else, okay? And me, I was like, well, bitch, you're married. You said you were only going to get married once, so you got to put your all into this. And you know what? If it's a problem, then, you know, there's counseling, there's therapy, there's all of this shit you can fucking do, right? Oh, the naive mind of a young adult. Ugh. Molly had done several things. Okay. And when Nick left, he went to South Korea. And I think he was at Camp Eagle, is what they called it. I could be wrong about that. But I don't think it exists anymore. I want to say that when he came home, they dismantled it and gave it back to Korea or whatever. Shit happened. Military shit. Like it always does. And none of it ever fucking makes any sense. But they do it anyways. So he's over there. And while he's over there, I start getting visits from a different kind of entity. And he would appear mostly at nighttime. Because now that Nick was in South Korea, I had to be on his schedule. And 14 hours ahead means I have to plan my days around him. I have to catch up on my sleep when I can. And I started getting a visit from what I called Shadow Man. He was like this swirling, and this is the first time I've encountered anything like this. And I can't say that I've encountered anything like it since. So I have no idea what this was, and I've done no research on it because I'm not that bitch. I don't go fucking do research on shit. I just let shit happen. If it's something that I feel like I need to figure out, then I will go figure out what and how to defend against it. But I don't immerse myself in that world, we'll say. But he was always black, and it was not a regular kind of black. Like there was brown swirls kind of mixed in it, and it was like the smoky mist looking stuff, and he carried this smell like you would expect in a speakeasy, maybe, you know, cigars and whiskey and gin and overpowering amounts of cologne that you could probably still find the scent in an Avon book somewhere. You know what I mean? And his shape would hold itself, but he would be swirling kind of the whole time. And he had this fedora, or I'm guessing it was a fedora. It was a hat. And no, it wasn't a fedora. It had a wider brim than that. And it had the two humps on the top. But he had a cigar, and he could physically touch you. You would feel it. Like, he grabbed me on my arm right here when I was sitting at the computer one night, and Nick like saw the sweatshirt that I was wearing. You know, you could see the ripples of the fabric in between the finger marks as I was being grabbed. And when he would communicate, it was all here. There was, you didn't hear it here, you heard it here. And he laughed a lot, and he was very mischievous and antagonistic. And he told me that the place in my closet was the door, and that's how he got in, was the door in my closet. And he was using it to send things through, to suck things in. And it felt like when he was around, anything happy and emotionally joyous in any way was just sucked out of you. And the only thing that you could feel was sickness and despair. Like, he would make you feel ill. Just the scent of him in the apartment. And there would be times where, you know, you could tell he'd pop in and then pop out just so that he could taunt you with the smell. And Carrie is witchy. I'm not. So she helped me deal with that. And Charlotte, I know this video's getting a little long, but I'm going to try and get rid of all of the paranormal shit before I move on to the next video, because I don't want to spend a bunch of time talking about it. I don't enjoy this part of life or myself. It just is. It exists, and I don't feel like going into great detail about it, to be honest. But it's part of the fucking story, so that's why we're telling it. Charlotte is Chris's wife, and she came to go help me. She came down. She stayed with me for a night. And while she was there, like, she understands crystals and, like, all kinds of that shit. And, you know, Nick's family's kind of Bible-y. So I was like, well, maybe that's what I need. Like, I used to be religious as a kid, and then I got chastised when I would ask questions instead of being guided. And I just found religion to be a crutch for people to stand on so that they could judge other people. And when it's not their place, it's the place of their deity. And I just found the hypocrisy so ridiculous that I couldn't let myself be a part of it anymore. Not trashing anybody who is religious, but, like, you do your fucking thing, you do you, live your fucking life, but it's not for me. But Carrie was helping me get rid of all of this stuff. And Charlotte, when she came over, you know, we were talking about, like, how we were going to go through the house, and room by room, we were going to cleanse it and all of this stuff, right? And I thought, great. And we're sitting at the dining room table at 3 a.m. God damn it. At 3 a.m., my daughter screams. And we go running back there. Charlotte gets right in her room. I was stopped, like, at the doorway. I couldn't cross that fucking threshold. So Charlotte grabs Alicia, and when I beat Charlotte to the door, but I couldn't get in. And when I was finally able to get in, I felt this, I don't know, it was like a freezing jolt of electricity go through me. And then I saw the shower curtain in the bathroom. It blew. And I'm like, okay. Obviously, there's something here that doesn't want me to know it's here. And it ran into the bathroom, and now it's standing there hiding between the shower and the toilet where there's only like a foot of space. And Charlotte grabs Alicia, you know, she's coming to the doorway, and we're asking Alicia what's going on because she's crying. She's got tears streaming down her face. She was asleep. Then she starts grabbing her arm, and she's like, Molly bit me. And we lift up her shirt sleeve, and there is a child-sized, perfectly rounded bite mark on the back of her arm. There's no way she did that to herself. And it's fresh. Like, it's welting up and bruising as we are looking at it. But we can see all of the fucking indented teeth marks on her skin. And I asked her, I said, where's Molly? And she walked past me and pointed into the bathroom exactly where this thing ran to. So then me and Charlotte, like, we take Alicia out to the kitchen and, you know, we're calming her down. And then, you know, we tell her she's sitting out there at the dining room table, you know, she can have a snack, have some Cheerios, whatever. And me and Charlotte get to fucking work. We start at the back of the apartment, and we are cleansing this whole fucking apartment, trying to get rid of the shit. And I'll tell you what, it worked for a short term. And then all fucking hell broke loose. I could not leave that apartment fast enough. Let me tell you. I don't want to get too into all of that, though. I will just say that things amped up after that and got crazy. Nick ended up, once he was in Korea, taunting Shadow Man, and Shadow Man attacked him over there. Did something to his fucking knee. I don't know exactly what occurred over there because I wasn't on that side, but he came back and told me, you know, what had happened. And he was doing laundry at that point in time when we were on video camera together. And he all of a sudden just hollered, and then Shadow Man reappeared behind me. It was the same day that I was grabbed. And Nick told Shadow Man to come and get him instead, pick on somebody else. So Shadow Man showed him exactly what he was capable of. And our experiences in that apartment, thankfully, stayed with that apartment. They did not follow us when we left. I guess I'll stop this one here. I didn't mean to ramble on about all of the paranormal shit for so long. But the next one, I guess we'll pick up, you know, when we were moving to Colorado. And that's when everything kind of starts to really spiral out of control. I went from the chaos of all of this unknown shit that I was dealing with to now I'm dealing with the demon that I can see in front of me because I married him. So that's where we'll leave this one. I'm trying. We can keep trying together. We'll get there eventually.